What is going on, my good people? Welcome back to the channel. This is Unnecessary Rambling. Appreciate you for tuning in. Appreciate you for stopping by. Appreciate you for coming back and talking some news with me here today. So, I posted like 3 news videos on Monday. I have been debating like how to roll the news back out. Do I do it as a daily show where I try to round up a bunch of news stories? Do I do it as individual pieces of, shorter form content and post those maybe 2-3 times a day, or just kind of whenever the news is breaking? And so we'll try this out today and see how it performs with the algorithm, see if it does a little bit better, and if it does, we'll keep on doing this if you like it. So if you do like this format, make sure to like it, drop a comment, let me know, subscribe if you're new. All of that data helps my brain kind of be like, okay, well, I think this is working, let's keep on with that, let's cut back on the other thing. So definitely let me know, man. And so we got a lot of big news to cover today that broke today, and this is probably the biggest piece of information. So we got Matt Piscatella from Circana posted the top 10 best-selling games on PlayStation for Q2 2025, and 6 of the 10 of these best-selling PlayStation games are Microsoft first-party titles. Xbox is making insane money from PlayStation, from selling their games on PlayStation. So let's go over this list real quick. The best-selling game of Q2 2025 is Elden Ring Night Rain, followed by Forza Horizon 5. At number 3, Oblivion Remastered. At 4, MLB The Show 25. At 5, Call of Duty Black Ops 6. At 6, Doom The Dark Ages. At 7, Death Stranding 2 on the Beach in its first month. That's awesome. 8, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. 9, Minecraft. 10, Assassin's Creed Shadows. So, yeah, Forza Horizon 5, Elder Scrolls Oblivion, Black Ops 6, Doom the Dark Ages, Indiana Jones, and Minecraft. So 6 of the top 10 are Microsoft first-party releases. And, man, I mean, you can see why they're taking the approach that they are to selling their games on PlayStation and on, PC, Switch, going fully third-party with this really aggressive multi-platform strategy. But it's... I'm curious, you saw the report come out of the job listing at PlayStation for someone to kind of assist in that multi-platform strategy over at PlayStation for developing games on Nintendo and Xbox and PC. And yeah, it's when you look at this data, it's like, shit, you can assume that shareholders over there in those meetings are like, hey, Xbox is selling games like hotcakes on your platform. Why are you not selling your games on every other platform so that we could be seeing these same types of ROI for these individual games? And I'm sure it is like a difficult thing to convey to those investors if you're Sony, where it's like, dude, our PlayStation console makes up 40% of our overall revenue. Our PlayStation console makes up 40% of our overall revenue at Sony overall. And so it's like, we really don't want to devalue this console by putting our games everywhere. But at the same time, when you're seeing data like that, it's like, shit, it is, I'm sure that's a very, very hard argument to make over there. And yeah, I guess the only real question is, if Sony does follow suit, how much, will that end up hurting their console business? And is it really worth the short-term gain for the long-term loss of potential? Like, will you actually end up selling fewer consoles? Is that an outdated philosophy? Because my mindset, and maybe I am a dinosaur, I'm just like, well, as soon as you end up putting your games everywhere, people lose the reason to buy your console. And like, you see that with Xbox, nobody's buying an Xbox, but they're buying all of the Xbox games on PlayStation. And it's like, just once again, when I'm thinking about this personally, I'm like, okay, well, we get into a next-gen conversation if PlayStation does become really aggressive with this multi-platform strategy. And I've talked about this before whenever it first broke about the hiring for the looking to go a little bit more multi-platform at PlayStation. I was like, it's going to be interesting. Next gen comes around and I'm looking to buy these two different consoles, a Series Y or a PlayStation 6. And if one of them I can play all of your PlayStation games, but I also get Game Pass, it's like, yeah, that's, I don't know, man. I wouldn't be too confident that people wouldn't make that shift to Xbox. You know what I mean? Game Pass is incredible value. If it remains consistent and locked in at its current price, which we know it won't, but if it doesn't get above like $30 a month, which, who knows, it's already pretty damn close. But that's incredible value. And yeah, it's just very, very interesting times to say the least, because there's no denying that Xbox's multi-platform strategy is working in terms of, just in terms of selling games. Obviously it's working. I would also argue it's been very detrimental to their console ecosystem for selling consoles. And that is where you get your big percent. That's where you get the Fortnite money and the Call of Duty money. Well, I guess they get Call of Duty money everywhere, but Fortnite money and your NBA 2K money and all of those microtransaction purchases, if they're made on your console and you're getting 30% cuts of all of them, that's where PlayStation makes the majority of its money. But like, how did you get those people into your ecosystem? I guess that's going to be the question. So it's really, really fascinating times as all of these companies are kind of taking different approaches, and Nintendo's just locked in being like, yeah, we're going to do what we do. We're going to make fucking great software that sells the hardware, and you're going to continue to buy our software, and we're going to be very, very 100% dependent on that relationship of make the great software that's locked to this hardware, and you keep buying it in this cycle. So yeah, I got to shout out, man. Death Stranding 2 is already in the top 10. That is fucking awesome. At number 7, that is absolutely fantastic. This is a very niche style of game, and for it to crack a top 10 best-selling of any quarter of any, that's impressive. That is really, really impressive. That means it sold, I would assume, well over 1 million copies, or at least 1.5, something like that, in that range. So shout out, man. Shout out to Kojima and the whole Strandverse. And I assume when Yote releases as well, it'll end up in that top 10, in that final top 10 somewhere. And I assume when Yote releases, it'll end up, cracking somewhere in that top 10. So at least they'll have 2 first-party titles in that top 10, before the end of the year. And also, it's worth pointing out that Oblivion and Black Ops and Doom and Indiana Jones, those are titles that would have been on this list regardless, just being Activision and Bethesda published games. But that's why Microsoft bought those companies, to publish their games and to make a whole lot of money publishing their games, and it's looking like they are doing just that. So good on them. Let's talk about $70 games. So it's looking like or I guess we should say, let's talk about $80 games, because it's looking like $70 games are probably here to stay. EA CEO Andrew Wilson is saying Battlefield 6 will remain at $70. His quote was, "We're not looking to make any changes on pricing at this stage, but that's in the construct of we already offer a fairly broad pricing scheme across our various products. When you think about everything from free-to-play through our premium products and our deluxe editions, our orientation is always to capture the full spectrum of pricing so that we can serve players in the best way possible and offer them the greatest value. We'll continue to look at opportunities to deliver great value to our players through various pricing schemes over the course of time, but no dramatic price changes are planned yet." And then, you see with Take-Two not raising the prices on Borderlands or NBA 2K and Mafia being $50, you see Microsoft backtracking on their $80 game plans, and just, people aren't going to pay $80 for their games. I just don't think that's, unless you have something that is an absolute guaranteed mega hit like a Mario Kart, like a Grand Theft Auto, like a Call of Duty. But even there, I don't really think that this $80 game thing is going to take off right now. I just think this was the wrong time to roll it out, with people in everyday life just being suffocated financially and having such a hard time getting by as is. Just wasn't the right time to do this with entertainment products. So yeah, good news, because Battlefield is definitely one of those games that absolutely could have charged $80 and would have for sure gotten away with it, as NBA 2K26 could have. They didn't do it. I think there's a fairly strong likelihood that GTA 6 is going to lock in at 70 as well. I actually, kind of bold prediction, I think Nintendo is going to, I don't think we'll see, how should I word this? I don't think we're going to get many, I'll say. Well, I mean, that's a pretty safe fucking prediction. I'll actually say this. I don't think we're going to get another $80 standard edition release from Nintendo first party until I got all of these different fucking factors rolling through my head of like, what could that next game be? I actually, because they did do it with one of the, was it Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, was like $80 for whatever reason, the Switch 2 version, which was just egregious. I could maybe see them doing weird shit like that, but I don't think for their new releases, I don't think they're going to charge $80 again. I think the Mario Kart thing was like a way to make that bundle look so damn appealing, where you could essentially get Mario Kart for $50 if you bought the bundle. Listen, this is probably me just being a hopeful for our side of this equation, the people who go out and purchase the games, the just everyday average consumers. But I don't think we're going to see another $80 game from Nintendo this generation. I kind of get this feeling that we're not going to see another $80 game, standard edition game from anybody this generation. It just felt like that was such an egregious overstep where we went to $70 and a lot of people, were like, damn, that's crazy. But I think by and large, a lot of us were like, okay, it's been a while since we've had a price hike. We've been paying $59.99 for a while now. And so, okay, now we're paying $69.99. We don't want to, but we kind of get it. But then going up $20 in one generation, that was just kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for a lot of people. And you saw a lot of outrage online. And I do think that outrage, listen, they're not reversing on these decisions, and they're not committing to $70 because they think they could get 80, but they want to be friendly to you and they're just going to charge you 70. If they thought they could get 80 and could make more money by getting, putting an $80 price tag on that thing, they would put an $80 price tag on it. I think that they're well aware that by keeping it at the standard rate, they're actually going to end up selling more copies, getting it into more hands, having more people go in and buy the different microtransactions and all that shit. This is a business move. These people are not our friends. And I understand, like, people will be like, well, there've been $80 versions for premium editions, for deluxe editions, special editions, this, that, and the other. There's been way more expensive than $80 versions of games. And yeah, that's definitely true. But I think everybody knows what we're talking about when we're talking standard editions, because if the standard edition price kind of tops out at 80 and that becomes the new norm, then that's going to raise the price on deluxe editions and all of your different special editions. Like, it's all going to go up. Everything is kind of based around the standard edition. So if the standard edition right now is at 70 and that makes the deluxe edition 80 or 90, if the standard edition goes up to 80, that then makes the deluxe edition 100 or 110 or, however they end up fucking scaling up based around that standard price. But yeah, I think that if it would have been kind of this gradual increase in price over time, because like even in the PS1, games were $59.99. They fluctuated a lot in the PS1. You had a lot of $39.99, $49.99, but I think you also had $59.99 as well. And so I don't know. I feel like if we could have gone up like $5 per generation, and yeah, maybe 3 to 5, somewhere in that range. Say it was $39.99 was locked in for PS1, and then we'd go up to $45 for PS2, and then $50 for PS3, and then $55 for PS4. You know what I'm saying? Once again, that's beneficial in our end of the equation because we'd still be paying for a cheaper price product overall. But I don't know. I don't really. The 70 from 60 to 70, from 70 to 80, that just felt like, yeah, that it felt fucking egregious, man. It felt genuinely egregious. So I'm happy to see that a lot of these publishers are recognizing that and either backtracking or just kind of remaining locked in at 70. So official prediction before we get out of this, I want to lock something in stone as I was waffling like crazy there. $70 for base edition of GTA 6. You'll be able to have some early access version for like 100 or 80, somewhere in that maybe. Here I go again, fucking waffling like crazy. All right, $70 base price for GTA 6, a 3-day early access for 90, and then a special edition, for 120 or whatever. Who gives a fuck about the super special edition? But so I think base price GTA 6 is going to be $70, and I don't think Nintendo releases another first-party game this generation at $80. I think that was just a Mario Kart thing. And once again, I've been wrong about so much shit. So much fucking shit. So bookmark this, and whenever Nintendo drops another $80 bomb on our head, tell me how wrong I am. So this next bit of information here, man, this is so shocking to me. NBA 2K25's budget was only $100 million. And somehow Lego 2K Drive had a $200 million budget. So this is coming from a LinkedIn profile from a fella named James Benjamin Bryant, who worked on both, NBA 2K25 and Lego 2K Drive. And when he was listing out his recent, the projects he's worked on, he specifically lists that he worked on both of those games and their budget. Where he said 2K25 had a $100 million budget. And Lego 2K Drive had a $200 million budget. This is wild. Like, who in their right mind greenlit Lego 2K Drive to cost as much as The Last of Us 2? That just seems crazy, man. Apologies there. I had to get a quick drink of water. But that just does not seem like a smart move for Lego 2K Drive to cost $200 million. It's actually, in a weird way, hear me out on this, it kind of seems like a not all that wise move for NBA 2K to only cost $100 million. I mean, I'm sure they're laughing to the bank, but you think if you took $100 million away from Lego 2K Drive and put it into NBA 2K, like, I could see that $100 million going a lot further. You know what I mean? Like, it seems kind of backwards there. But then again, I don't know. I played Lego 2K Drive, and there were a couple times where I was playing the game, and I was like, what the fuck am I looking at here? Why are there 5 open worlds in this game? Why, why are there so many weird mechanics and moving parts and destructibility? And like, I'm going from a car into a boat, into a plane. Like, what the hell is it was such a cool game. People sleep on Lego and 2K Drive. But $200 million for the budget. That just does not seem all that wise. And typically, Take-Two is pretty damn smart with their investments. That just, hey, every now and then you whiff on a call, which I don't know if I don't think it sold all that well. I haven't heard much buzz about it at all since it released with Lego 2K Drive. But yeah, dude, did y'all see? Speaking of, sorry, I'm all over the damn place. But did y'all see the mod for NBA 2K, where it's like this photorealistic mod for NBA 2K? I was watching that, and I'm not like a mod guy. I don't find most mods to be all that impressive, but this looked wild, dude. This looked so wild. And there's a couple moments in there, and I'll let it run right here, and I'll try to find the user who created it so I can credit them. But, you know, there's a couple moments where you see the 2K isms in there. You know what I mean? You see the weird animation quality, or just the net is the dead giveaway. Where the net just looks so bad in those 2K games, where it just splashes up and it does this like overly cartoony. It just doesn't look like a real net at all. Like you look at most players who are dead eye shooters, when they hit that shot, that net almost doesn't even move. But in 2K, it like splashes up and like it's all of this weird over the top kind of. And I get it from a visual standpoint to really make it seem that you nailed that three and the net kind of splashed up in the air, and it's like, I get it, but it just does. That's the one part of this mod that just doesn't really look realistic at all. But other than that, like the movements, it's crazy how good this looks. And you think about that $100 million that could have went into NBA 2K, that extra $100 million. It's like, I don't know, it'd be dope for an NBA 2K game to look like this. And even if it's just a different mode you can toggle, you know how you have your 90s filter and your 80s filter and all of that shit when you go back and play in the classic eras. Be dope to have something like this as a feature. And I know it's much more complicated than that, and I don't think that $100 million would have went towards that. It would have went towards, let's see, or how can we create some new shoes that we can, charge this amount of money through our microtransactions and on our store. How can we, all of that money would have been into research for how they could fucking nickel and dime the player even more. But yeah, I find that mod, it looks wild, man. A Nintendo Direct is taking place tomorrow. So a Nintendo Partner Direct confirmed for July 31st at 6 a.m. Pacific time. It will be 25 minutes of info on upcoming Switch 2 and Switch 1 games from publishing partners. So wording there is interesting, right? Specifically focusing on publishing partners. So I'm assuming this will be more of like a third-party showcase. And so I just started kind of kicking around in my head, like, what could we see at this showcase? Hi-Fi Rush hit my head almost instantly. It's like that game makes so much sense for the Switch 2 with the 60 frames per second and having that as kind of a necessity for the rhythm-based components of Hi-Fi Rush. I think a native kind of bundle of RE2 Remake, RE3 Remake, and RE4 Remake makes a ton of sense on the Switch with just the heritage of Resident Evil and Nintendo from back in the day. And obviously those games are on iPhone, or at least RE4 is on iPhone. I think the others are, or they were coming to iOS, if I'm not mistaken. But if it can run on an iPhone, it can run on a Switch too. And yeah, I don't know. I wonder if this could be where we get our first little bit of information about Red Dead Redemption 2 getting a next-gen port. Or maybe like the last-gen version comes to Switch 2, and it's later announced that like an enhanced edition will be on the PS5 and Series X of holiday 2025 or whenever they release it. And I mean, hell, GTA 4, there's all the rumors of that getting remastered, and obviously the Switch 2 can run that without a shadow of a doubt. And you even think to GTA 5, that's still not on Nintendo. So I would assume that's more due to like some of the online limitations. But yeah, that Rockstar kind of portfolio of recent releases that date back to 2008. That's Rockstar's recent releases. Ubisoft, they were quiet all summer with no appearance at SGF. I wonder if they were, waiting to drop the big announcement in collaboration with Nintendo. Yeah, they, obviously they did the Mario and Rabbids games, and they're always supportive of new console launches, but they also have that Rayman game in development. They have that partnership for the 2D Prince of Persia game with the Evil Empire, the Dead Cell guys. I think both of those announcements would make sense here. For sure. I think that really any of those three could make sense. A new Mario and Rabbids. I think there was actually, I could be wrong, fact check me in the comments. I think there was a Mario and Rabbids game pitched and Nintendo axed the third game, or maybe they had plans for a third game and Nintendo didn't want to go through with it. I might be misremembering, but I mean, even something like Splinter Cell from Ubisoft. Like, I don't think the Switch 2 would have any problem at all running the Splinter Cell reboot. A linear, single-player, 8-hour, like, I don't think that game's going to be anything overly ambitious. I assume it's going to have great graphical fidelity and all of that shit, but I don't think that the Switch 2 would have, at least the version of Splinter Cell I see in my head, that's going to get rebooted. I don't think that would have trouble running on a Switch 2. You're seeing that James Bond game come out on Switch 2, and I assume it will be somewhat similar in scope to that, maybe even smaller. If Ubisoft is smart, they probably wouldn't put the same amount of resources into Splinter Cell as you know, as getting put into a James Bond game. But you know, but even going through this list here and talking about the games we're talking about, it's like, Splinter Cell would be exciting, right? Because that's new. But everything else we just talked about, did I talk about anything new? Rayman would be new, right? Yeah, Rayman would be new. But everything else is speculation about games that have already released. And it's like, I don't think they're going to have a showcase just to announce games coming to Switch 2 that have already released elsewhere. So it's like, they got to have one big thing. So what could that one big thing be? And I think to like a Bayonetta 4, you know, something from Platinum. I know they're busy with Ninja Gaiden 4 right now, and I think they're also working on a live service game, unfortunately. So maybe that's the thing that's revealed here. Maybe that's kind of Nintendo's jump into the live service verse with Platinum kind of, you know, leading the charge. But Bayonetta 4, I think, makes a lot of sense. I know those games don't sell incredibly well, but they do have a base that's been built up on your platform over the years. And I thought 3 was really good. I liked it a little bit less than 1, but I like all those games. Like, they're all really fun fucking video games. So I'm very much down to play a 4th one. And then you think to the big thing being like Silksong. Could that be the big thing? A release date for Silksong? Could that be like the one last thing, the big announcement? But I'm curious how y'all feel. Do you think Silksong still has that, you know, it factor about it? Does it still have that one last thing sort of, does it resonate as a one last thing anymore? I guess if it has a release date, I mean, if it had a Shadow Drop release date, of course, right? Like, of course that would be fucking huge. But is that necessarily the smartest route to go? I don't know. I mean, maybe it could be. Maybe that could be the surprise, like, holy shit. But no, they said it was going to be playable at Gamescom, which is right around the corner. So no, but I do think it'll get a release date here announced, and then it'll be playable at Gamescom. That makes the most sense for the marketing beat. So maybe that is the one big last reveal. And then you got to assume Microsoft will be there with Doom or Indiana Jones or Avowed. You know, they have constant games coming out, as we just talked about. Forza Horizon 5, or, you know, maybe some like a Sunset Overdrive would be dope to see on Switch 2. And yeah, they got a lot of games releasing nonstop. They're a mega publisher at this point, so I assume they'll have something there to show for Switch 2 as well. But yeah, that's the bulk of the news that I got jotted down. I'll quickly shout this out. I just real quick. There's this bully-inspired game that is supposedly releasing next year called Agefield High. So, man, I gotta be real. I'm split on this. When I see it, and I definitely see the Bully inspiration, I'm like, fuck, yes, it's criminal that we never got a sequel to Bully. And I think it's more insane than just that. Is like, not only did we never get a sequel to Bully, we never really saw people take inspiration from Bully. Like, there's never been a Bully clone, or there's never been a game that, at least in my mind, I can think of that's all that similar to Bully. I'm sure there's something I'm missing off the top of my head, but And then now you have this Agefield High game. So I'll have the trailer running, and you'll see this is definitely not a triple A or a double A effort. It's definitely, it doesn't have that type of budget. It's not one of those types of productions, but it's so listen. It's being made by the team who made Grey Hill Incident, which I did not like at all. But I try not to ever write off a team based on one bad game. Like, none of your top tier studios became top tier studios overnight. The idea is to hone your craft over time, and eventually you have that Hogwarts Legacy moment for Avalanche. Eventually you have that big breakthrough where you're put on the map. Am I saying that I think that this is going to be the game that puts that team on the map? Not necessarily. But at the same time, I do look at it and I'm like, I could go for a really fucking janky bully game. Like, I could go for a really weird, just horribly, like the lip sync being all over the place, faces not moving when they're talking. But if you can deliver like the heart, the soul, the spirit of the early 2000s, because that's what they're trying to capture here. You obviously see it in the trailer with the characters and just the goth sort of appearance, the American Pie kind of aesthetic. They're definitely going for the early 2000s vibe here. And if you can capture that in this really janky manner, I'm so on board for that. So just, keep your eye on Agefield High. Really, really curious to see some more details on that title as it gets closer to release in 2026, if it indeed releases in 2026. It's ambitious. I'll give them that. Ambitious. And so here's hoping. I always want that's unique. You see that, right? And you're like, oh, there's not a lot of games that are even trying to do what this is trying to do. So like, you're kind of just rooting for it for that reason alone. The novelty factor of it. Once again, are my expectations high? Not at all. Am I expecting this to be great? Not at all. But if it's a 5.5, 6 out of 10 version of a bully clone, I hate to I hate to set the bar so low, but there's just nothing like that. There's no games like that to play. So if I can play a somewhat mediocre version of it and that's all that we get, then sure, that's what we get. I'll happily check it out. So yeah, just something to kind of cap off the show with. Keep your eye on Agefield High, coming from, I forget the name of the team, but the creators of Grey Hill Incident, the alien invasion game that released in like 2023. So yeah, here's hoping. I really am hoping for the best on that. So that's been today's game news. Hope y'all are feeling like you've been caught up with the news that is in the world of the video games. Once again, trying to find the right rhythm, find the right cadence, find the right rollout for the news content. Hoping that this will work. Hoping that something will work for this damn channel eventually. If it does end up working, what I'm kind of thinking about doing is, any day that I can come in here, get the news done, to just try to get these out as frequently as possible, as long as they're doing well. And then I want to do, I've talked about it before, but I am going to do some collection-oriented content. I'm going to try to do that. I would like to shoot for weekly, but let's set bi-weekly as an expectation, and then kind of some random, just off the top of the head topic videos. I had one idea that was centered around like reviewing the backlog. So I'm going to go into a site called Backlogged and review my backlog and like put in my number score for my backlogged games. And actually I had a viewer who was like, hey, do you have a backlogged account? I'd like to, see the games that you've been playing and rating and reviewing on there. And I did have one, but I don't use it. And then when he said that, I was like, oh shit, there's actually some interesting things I could maybe figure out how to do with that. So keep your eyes peeled, trying to toss around some different ideas, some new stuff for the channel, and then also try to lock in something that's really consistent, something that I can repeat on a regular basis, like this news, to kind of be the main structure of the channel, the bones of the channel, and then build everything else kind of around that. And then obviously the Ramble Report will be on Friday, and then the rankings will be at the end of the month. So just trying to build some pillars for people to expect, and hopefully some things that just start, giving us a little bit of momentum here. Yeah, so that's the plan for right now. I hope y'all enjoyed this, and I'd greatly appreciate, if you want to share it with a buddy or just drop a like on it to hopefully get it out there to a couple new eyeballs that can come in and, hopefully appreciate some video game discussion that's not people screaming and not, overly rage baity and clickbaity and all of that. Listen, you can't lie. You got to play in that field a little bit. You got to do it. I'm not going to do the rage baiting, yelling, and all that shit. My voice can't take it. Getting old, man. But you got to do a little bit of clickbait. That's just if you're going to grow anything, unfortunately, there's got to be a tinge of it. And it's not necessarily clickbait. It's just like sensationalized titles for the video. I'm sure something on this video is like mildly sensationalized. You come in, you definitely you listen to it, and there's nothing that's hopefully as you're tuning in, you're like, oh, this is fine content to just listen to. As nobody's screaming into my eardrums. It's not an overly dramatic human being on the other end of this. So just trying to build that as kind of the backbone. And yeah, so hope y'all enjoy it, man. Greatly appreciate all of your guys' support over the years. It's been a long ass ride, a long fucking time, over 5 years now. So yeah, just still trying, and yeah. I've already taken up enough of your time. I appreciate y'all for tuning in, and I will see you good people in the next video. Goodbye.